So in this video I'm going to talk about how top-down triangular shawls and half hexagon shawls are shaped and how to understand the pattern the way I write it. So this is the beginning of my Carmen shawl. It's basically two triangles work next to each other to form a larger triangle. So you work across the first triangle, then there's a center spine stitch, and then you work across the second triangle. So it starts here with about 7 stitches, and then it grows outwards and you cast off all the way along this edge at the bottom. So let's look at the actual pattern and see what that says. So all my charts, I'm going to be referring to charts because it's a lot easier to understand this if you can understand the charts. Now I will link up a tutorial to how to read charts below. So if you're new to charts, have a look at that. All my patterns include written instructions as well, but it's just easier for the sake of this tutorial to use charts because it's a bit more visual. So the pattern, and this is what some people find confusing, so I think it's the way I'm phrasing the pattern, although I do get a lot less questions about this now than I used to. So I think the way I've changed my pattern writing over the years has made this a lot clearer. But I still do get occasional questions, so I thought I would do a video to sort of clarify it. So after you've cast on, this is the instructions. Row 1 right side, slip with yarn in front, knit 1, work row 1 of chart A, knit 1, work row 1 of chart A, and then knit 2. So if you look at the chart, we're going to start with a slip stitch, then we're going to work row 1 of chart A, and then we're going to knit 1, which is the spine stitch in the middle, and then we're going to work row 1 of chart A, and then we're going to knit 2 at the end of the row. So I prefer to, basically these two triangles are identical, so I can chart it out so that it shows the whole width of the shawl. So this will be row 1, so slip 1, knit 1, work row 1 of chart A, knit 1, work row 1 of chart A, and then knit 2. The problem is this takes up a lot of space, and it means that I have to make the chart smaller to fit all the charts in. So what I tend to do is I tend to take one of those triangles out and put it on its own, like here. So you can see that that is the same as that. And then I just write out the bit that goes before, in the middle, and at the end. It may be a bit confusing when you first start knitting a shawl like this, but once you get a few rows into it, hopefully it should be fairly easy to follow. So I'm going to actually knit through the beginning of this chart just to show you. So I've cast on 7 stitches. And I'm going to follow this big chart first. So I'm going to start with a slip stitch. So to slip with yarn in front. Now I knit continental style with the yarn in my left hand. But this works just as well if you knit English style. So I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, and then I'm going to work row 1 of chart A, which is, hang on, yeah, row 1 of chart A, which is yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. So that's this section here, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. Yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. And then it says to knit 1, which is this center spine stitch here. So I'm going to knit 1. And then I'm going to work row 1 of chart A again, which is yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and then I'm going to end with knit 2. And then I'm going to do row 2, which is slip 1 with yarn in front. Now the reason I like to slip the first stitch of every row is because it just creates a neat edge. You don't have to do it, but it's something I like to do. So I slip the first one, knit 1, and then I'm going to purl to the last 2 stitches. I'm going to do the wrong side rows fairly quickly. There we go. Now on this next row, it does help if you put a marker on the spine stitch. So I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, then I'm going to work row 3 of chart A. So I'm actually going to knit from that chart because that makes it a bit easier. Slip 1, knit 1, yarn over, knit 3, 2, 3, and then we've got a yarn over, and then knit 1, and then I'm going to work, which is the spine stitch. Now what I do recommend is to put a marker on that spine stitch. Now some patterns tell you to put a marker in front of that spine stitch, and actually some of my older patterns may still say that, because that's what I used to do. The problem is when I put a marker there, then I knit that spine stitch, what quite often happens is that, because you see there's a yarn over in front of that marker, what quite often happens is that that marker will slip under that yarn over to the wrong side. So if I'm using that marker as a way of telling me where the spine stitch is, now it's obviously in the wrong place, because it needs to be here. So I've stopped recommending using markers like that, and instead what I do is I recommend you use a use a padlock marker. So when you've knitted on row 1 or 3 or 5, one of the first few right side rows, when you knit that spine stitch, just put the marker, and what I do is I actually put it around the stitch like that, because then I find it easier to see where it is. Okay, that's the spine stitch, that's the knit one in the middle. Then yarn over, I'm going to work row 3 of chart A again, which is yarn over, knit 3, yarn over, knit 2 at the end. Okay, so that's row 3. So I'm going to do row 4 very quickly. All the wrong side rows, I just slip one purlwise with the yarn in front, knit 1, and then purl to the last 2 stitches. There we go. Okay, so row 5 I think we're on now. So on my pattern I actually write out normally rows 1, 2 and 3. So row 1 is down here, and then row 2 and row 3. Row 3, slip 1, knit 1, work row 3 of chart A. This one I actually put a marker in front of the knit 1, which I've changed on later patterns. Knit 1, work row 3 of chart A, knit 2 at the end. So I've increased 4 stitches. And then after row 3, I tend to just put continue as established, working through all 22 rows of chart A once. So every other row now, every right side row is going to be worked like row 3, and every wrong side row is going to be worked like row 2. So when I get to row 5, I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, work row 5 of the chart. So let me do that. Slip 1, knit 1, yarn over. Row 5 of the chart is just knit 5, yarn over, knit 5, yarn over, and then knit 1, which is my spine stitch in the middle, and then I'm going to do yarn over, knit 5, hang on, 2, 3, 4, 5, yarn over, and then it ends with a knit 2. So that's row 5, so we're going to now do the wrong side row, slip 1, knit 1, purl to the last 2 stitches. I'll do one more right side row. Oops. Drop the stitch there, there we go. Okay, so row 7. So I'm still going to slip the first one, knit 1, yarn over, and then row 7 is yarn over, knit 1, because now the lace pattern starts, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, SSK, knit 1, yarn over. So now you can see I've come to that stitch with the marker on, so I know now that I'm at the spine stitch. So if I think I've knitted through that row and I'm not at the spine stitch when I get to that marked stitch, I know I've done something wrong. So it's kind of like a check in the middle to make sure you're on the right track. And every few rows I'll move that marker up. So if I want to move it up, I just take it off, and then I put it around the last row that this current row that I'm on. Oops. There we go. So it's kind of around the stitch like that. Yarn over, knit one, knit two together, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, SSK, knit one, yarn over, knit two. Okay. So now you can start to see that that's starting to emerge, that shape is starting to emerge, so it mirrors, hang on, see if I can show you, it mirrors this shape here. So I only got to about there. So can you see how that's starting to take shape? So let's look at the written instructions again. So it says slip one, knit one, work row 1 of chart A, which is here, knit one, which is the spine stitch, and then work row 1 of chart A again, and then knit 2. So when I work through all 22 rows for the first chart, I'm on to chart B. So that carries on in the same way. And the first time I work through chart B, I'll be working the pattern repeat 1. So you can see this has got the repeat in the middle here. The stitches inside the red border, that's the pattern repeat. So the first time I work through this chart, I'm going to slip one, knit one, work row 1 of the chart, just straight through, knit one for the spine stitch in the middle, that one, and then I'm going to work row 1 of chart B again, straight through, and then knit 2 at the end. Then I do that with all the other right side rows. Once I've done 8 rows and I start row 1 for the second time, I'm going to slip one, knit one, and this time I have 8 more stitches, which means I can fit in another 8 stitch repeat. So I'm going to slip one, knit one, work row 1 of chart B to the end of that repeat, and then I'm going to go back to the beginning of that repeat and work the repeat again, and then carry on. And this is where having that center stitch, that spine stitch mark, makes it easier, because you can tell, because as you knit through the shawl, each time you work the 8 rows of chart B, you're going to have an extra 8 stitch repeat in each half of the shawl. And it can sometimes you can sometimes get a bit carried away and forget how many repeats of the chart of the pattern repeat you're doing. So when you get to the marked stitch, you will know. So for example, you'll see that you've got a marker on that stitch like that. So as you're knitting through, you'll know when you get to that marked stitch that it's the center of the shawl and you need to do a knit one. And they also should be at the end of the chart. So as I'm doing the second repeat of chart B, I'm doing slip one, knit one, work to the end of the pattern repeat, work those stitches again, then I carry on to the end of the row, then I knit one for the middle, and then I work row 1 of the chart B again, the end of the pattern repeat, work that repeat again, and then I work to the end of the row, and then I've got 2 stitches left, so I knit 2. The third time I start row 1 of chart B, I do that repeat 3 times, and so on. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now let's look at what happens when you do a half hexagon shawl. So let's look at Ivy. So Ivy starts off like a half hexagon shawl, then it actually changes shaping, which I'll explain in a minute. So it goes from being a half hexagon at the beginning to what I call a hybrid shawl, or it has a similar kind of shape to fairies shawls, but it's not knitted in the same way because they tend to be knitted from the bottom to the top. This is top down. So it uses the same kind of principle as the top down triangular shawl. So you start with 9 stitches here, and then you slip on the knit one at the beginning, then you work across the first triangle, and then you work across the middle section, which to start with is a triangle to about here, and then you knit one, and then you work across the end. So here you got 2 spine stitches. So I'm just going to put some markers of those spine stitches to kind of highlight them. So that's 1. that's another. Let's switch that marker out with a yellow one because it's a bit more visible. Okay, so that's the first spine stitch. Then you work the middle section, another spine stitch, and then you work the final section. So let's look at how that's actually written in the pattern. Now, don't let the number of charts intimidate you. It's only because of the way that the shawl is actually shaped. It's just because it's got different, it starts with one chart and then it goes into another one later down. And again, there are written instructions as well. So here you start with 9 stitches, and then you're going to be working charts A and B. So you're going to slip one, knit one, then you're going to work row 1 of chart A, that's here. Then you're going to knit one, which is the spine stitch. Then you're going to work row 1 of chart B, which is this middle section, knit one for the second spine stitch, and then you're going to work row 1 of chart A. So you're going to do slip one, knit one, chart A, knit one, chart B, knit one, chart A, knit 2. So if I show you what that looks like, what that looks like if I charted it all out for the full row, then you got slip one, knit one, chart A, knit one, chart B, knit one, chart A, and knit 2 at the end. Again, I take out chart A, which is those 2 sections, and chart B, and put those separately. Okay, so let me knit through that for you so you can see how that works in practice. So I've got 9 stitches here, so I'm going to slip the first one, knit one, and then basically on the first row, both chart A and B is yarn over, knit one, yarn over, yarn over, knit one, yarn over. So they're both basically the same. So yarn over, knit one, yarn over, and then the spine stitch. So I'm going to put a marker on that spine stitch. There we go. And then I'm going to do chart B. Hang on. Yarn over, knit one, yarn over, and then the second spine stitch. So I'm going to put a marker on that one as well. And then yarn over, knit one, yarn over, which is chart A, and then knit the last 2. So I've increased 6 stitches now, 2 stitches in each section. So if you look here on the big chart, you can see I've increased 2 stitches there, 2 there, and 2 there. And then I'm going to do row 2, which is the same as the other row 2s. It's the same as the first shawl Carmen that we looked at. So slip one, knit one, purl to the last 2 stitches, and then we're going to do row 3. So row 3 up here reads slip one, knit one. Hang on, that's row 3. Slip one, knit one, work row 3 at chart A, knit one. In this pattern, I've actually put the knit one in bold, and then with a note here that I recommend you put a locking stitch marker on the knit one in bold, so you can see that that's the spine stitch. Work row 3 of chart B, knit one, work row 3 of chart A, knit 2. So let's do that. So we're going to slip the first one, knit one, and then we're going to work row 3 of chart A, which is yarn over, knit 3, yarn over, knit one for the spine stitch, which is where my marker is. So I'm actually going to move that marker up 1. You don't have to move the marker on every row, but it's just easier to have it slightly further up. And then we're going to work row 3 of chart B, which is yarn over, knit 3, yarn over, and then that's the spine, knit 1 for the spine stitch. So I'm going to move the marker up again. Yarn over, knit 3 for chart A, row 3 of chart A, yarn over, knit 2, and row 4. Okay, so let's do row 5. So again on this pattern I've done the same thing I did before. So I write out up to row 3 and then I say continue as established, working through all 24 rows of charts A and B once. So you carry on repeating row 3 and row 2, row 3 for right side rows, but you work in the next row of the chart. So row 5 you'll be working row 5 of the chart. So I'll just do that quickly. So slip 1, knit 1, yarn over. This time it's knit 5, 5, yarn over, knit 1, so that's the spine stitch which is in bold, yarn over, knit 5, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, knit 5 for chart A, yarn over, knit 2. So that's how the first 5 rows look. So if you're going to do a half hexagon shawl, you just carry on increasing 2 stitches in each of the 3 sections. So a half hexagon is basically 3 triangles next to each other. Ivy shawl is not actually a full half hexagon. It's actually what I call a hybrid shawl. So it's got the section in the middle basically to about here. It's 3 triangles, and then in the middle it stops increasing for the middle one. So when you get to let's just look at this again. When you get to charts C and D, when you've done the 24 rows of chart A and B, you get to charts C and D, you're gonna slip 1, knit 1, work row 1 of chart C. Again, you've got the pattern repeat here, and to start with you've just got enough stitches to work straight through that row. Then you got knit 1, which is the first spine stitch here, and then you're going to work chart D, and you can see chart D doesn't have any increases. Okay, so you're going to just work straight across the 25 stitches of chart D, knit 1, which is the second spine stitch, and then you're going to work chart C again, and then you're going to knit 2 at the end of the row. And then you carry on like that to row 20, and then when you start row 1 again, you're going to slip 1, knit 1, and so this time you have enough stitches to work the pattern repeat twice. So you work across, work those stitches twice, carry on to the end of the chart, knit 1 for the first spine stitch, then work next row of chart D, for the middle, second spine stitch, and then row chart C again. So this time you've got work that repeat twice and then carry on. Then you've got 2 stitches left. Okay, so if we just recap quickly, so instead of charting the full row of the chart like this, so the written instruction says slip 1, knit 1, work row 1 of chart A, knit 1 for the spine stitch, work row 1 of chart A, knit 2. So I take one of those 2 triangles out and put it on its own, and then I write the written instructions next to it. So it may seem confusing to start with, but once you understand how it works, and all you need to do is remember there's the slip 1, knit 1 at the beginning, then chart A, knit 1 in the middle, chart A, knit 2 at the end. That's all you need to remember. Now if it was a straightforward half hexagon shawl, just a plain half hexagon shawl, then chances are that chart A would be the same in the middle. So for this kind of hybrid shawl I tend to use a different panel in the middle, different lace pattern in the middle, but if it was a straightforward half hexagon shawl, then that would probably be the same as that. So it would be, but the Ivy shawl is actually a hybrid shawl, so the center section I tend to make a feature of it by making it slightly different, but it's the same way. So slip 1. Again, for the Ivy shawl, I take the chart A and chart B out, that's chart A, and put it separately, and then I write out these bits here. So the slip one, knit one, the knit one for the 2 spine stitches, and the knit 2 at the beginning. So we do slip one, knit one, work row 1 of chart A, knit 1 for the spine stitch, work row 1 of chart B, knit 1 for the second spine stitch, work row 1 of chart A. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense now when you're knitting these kinds of patterns. This is the way I like to chart it out. It doesn't mean that everyone does it exactly the same way, but it's the way I like to do it. If you have any questions, please ask and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you for watching.